Hi, for the next 5 minutes, I'd like to talk to you about strategic alliances. As we do this, I want to start out by explaining the difference between a strategic alliance, licensing, and joint ventures and venture. In licensing, you make your money through a use fee. It's called a royalty rate. You pass the technology, part of the rights in the technology to somebody, and as they do something, they extract utility from it, they pay you a rate for doing that. They may pay you all up front based upon the utility they expect to get, but nonetheless, it's a utility-based fee. In a joint venture, you make your money from equity payments. Similarly, in venture capital, the investor and you, as the person attracting the venture, going out for venture, you make your money when you sell equity. Strategic alliances are different. There you make your money out of sales. That's why, by the way, a cooperative research and development agreement is a joint venture rather than a strategic alliance, because in CRADA, what you're both doing is doing research together and you both own the intellectual property. You own equity in that intellectual property and only make your money when you license or sell it. In a strategic alliance, we have two partners, A and B, and they're each doing different things. I'll give you an example from Foresight. We have a strategic alliance partner in Finland called Licensia. Licensia markets our services, our market research services in Finland. Then they turn and pass the work to us. We do all the work. They don't do any of the market research. They then hand it to the customer. We actually ship it to the customer. They collect the fee from the customer. Part of the fee goes back to us. Part of the fee goes to them. We're selling services, they're selling customer relations. Very distinct roles. Sometimes these roles begin to merge and overlap. That's a situation you have to be careful about, because that's where you get intellectual property leakage. And if you're dealing with dishonorable people, the pirate and then may come out and you may lose your intellectual property. The way you deal with these situations where there's overlap between the parties is you do a franchise agreement. And what happens in franchising is basically you structure the strategic alliance with a license agreement on top of it, so there's a dual agreement going on in effect, and that defines how the leakage will occur and what's taking place in the leakage. Let's quickly run down the rest of the aspects of an intellectual, or rather of a strategic alliance. The technology can be pretty much anywhere, but you usually see them in mature technologies or at least technologies that are heading for production in final test and evaluation. A may be a marketing company, B may be a technology company. A comes in to help do the final product design and so on and so forth, and give advice on that. In terms of the markets and the stability of the dominant design, you tend to see these only where dominant designs have actually emerged. It makes sense there because you can reduce the risk, and this is a risk-sharing kind of agreement. Both parties can figure out what's going on. However, the interesting thing is these also work when dominant designs are starting to collapse, because you can sort of hedge your bet by forming strategic alliances to focus on different aspects of things so that you can put your toe in the water. Similarly, they will work well on markets that are entering shakeout, because strategic alliances may give you a hedge against being consolidated and going out of business. Finally, where do you get your revenues? Well, as we've said before, you're going to get your revenues from sales. Each party is selling something, and that is where the revenues come from. This is an example in general of an arm's length kind of a relationship, a business transaction. So thanks, and we'll come back next time for a very brief discussion of sales themselves. Hi, in this last session on deal vehicles, I want to talk briefly about sales. Everything else we've talked about so far has about risk sharing. Sales are different. Sales are about transferring risk entirely to the other party. When you buy it, you assume the risk. Doesn't matter whether you're selling a cup, selling the process, all the rights and the technology to make the cup, selling a machine, or you're just selling the whole company that makes the cup. You as the buyer now hold all the risk, except for in some well-defined circumstances such as product liability, if there's fraud, something like that. But those are risks that are easy enough to avoid. So in sales, we have risk transfer rather than risk sharing. Sales work best because of that, because of what buyers are looking for, where the technology's mature, where you know what you're getting. You may say, well, what about selling onesie-twosies in a very embryonic market where nobody knows what's going on? Well, in that case, what you're usually selling is a more mature technology or a more mature process bundled with services to make something specific, or you're selling a beta test prototype and you're getting somebody to help offset the cost for it, and it's more like licensing it because you have all these conditions that protect you when people use the beta test prototype. But you can think of sales sometimes in terms of onesie-twosie kind of things. But in general, the dominant design is stable, the technology is mature, and you're making your money from transferring all the rights that you have in something to somebody else who will then use it as they see fit. You have nothing left to say about it in exchange for a revenue stream that you get once at the time of the sale. So that's what sales are about, transferring risk in transferring property rights in exchange for money.